Beauty's a feeling to me. Beauty is feeling confident and strong and healthy and um, knowing that you have an attractiveness that's based on how healthy your body and your mind, your body, and for that matter, your skin, and for that matter, your spirit is.
Welcome to the Beauty Talk podcast, where we feature how the best medical practitioners help their patients to look better, younger, and healthier. Now, enjoy the show, and here's your host.
Daniel Gao here. I'm the host of Beauty Talk. We feature the top medical practitioners in health and beauty, both inside and out. I have Benjamin Knight Fuchs, a compounding pharmacist, nutritionist, and cosmetic chemist with decades of experience formulating therapeutic skincare. As the founder of Truth Treatments, he is known for pioneering a topical nutrition approach, using high-potency, pharmacist-formulated actives to support skin health at the cellular level, rather than simply masking symptoms. Benjamin is also a nationally recognized educator and host of The Bright Side, where he translates complex science into practical strategies for achieving vibrant skin and overall wellness. His work bridges pharmacy, nutrition, and bioelectric skin science, positioning him as the leading voice in functional, results-driven skincare. So Ben, welcome and glad to have you here.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so let's start at the very beginning. How did you first get interested in the medical field?
Well, that's an interesting question. Skincare and medicine are a little bit different. I was one of those nerds with a chemistry set. When I was a kid, I was just fascinated with chemistry. And then I was also interested in food, and I was also an athlete. And in my young 20-year-old mind, I was like, how could I study food as medicine for performance?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why, but I thought of pharmacy. Well, as it turns out, that's not what pharmacists do. And my introductory meeting with the dean, all the pharmacy students go to the dean's office the first day of school, and the dean interviews you. And I told him I want to study food as medicine. Well, he thought that was the most hysterical thing he'd ever heard. He's like, we just study drugs here, and sure enough, that's exactly what happened. I studied medicine. I studied literally medicine, pharmaceuticals, and drugs. But along the way, I had this incredible experience. I was walking through the basement of the School of Pharmacy one day in Boulder, Colorado, where I went to pharmacy school. And I smelled this pepperminty smell coming out of one of the rooms. And I was kind of a lab rat, and I was very frustrated that I was learning about how you open up a pharmacy and how you stock your pharmacy shelves and how you do pharmacy accounting. And I walked into this laboratory, and I was just blown away. The coolest lab I'd ever seen, with flasks and distilling glassware and scales. And there was a corner with animals, little rats, and there was another corner with ingredients. And there was a little old man tinkering with some beakers in the corner. And I started chatting him up, and lo and behold, this little old man that was tinkering around with the beakers that I chatted up was the guy who invented the lip medicine Blistex, which I'm sure you've heard of.
Mm-hmm.
And the room that I walked into was the Blistex research facility. As it turned out, this little man, Dr. Tony Jones, was a professor at the School of Pharmacy, a retired professor. He's very well known, and Blistex gave the university a bunch of money, and the university gave Blistex a lab. And for the next 4 years, I ended up as Dr. Jones' research assistant, learning everything you could possibly imagine about formulations, about research, about testing, about ingredients, about how you make products. And I got a soup to nuts experience in skincare, basically, but not just any skincare, not cosmetic skincare, but medicinal skincare. What Dr. Jones showed me, and my experience in Blistex Lab showed me, is there were things you could do to really make a difference in the skin. Dr. Jones was old school. He had developed Blistex in the 1920s, so he didn't have any of the modern understandings, but he gave me a basic understanding of how formulations work. And then when I graduated pharmacy school, through a circuitous route, I started a compounding pharmacy. You may have heard that term. That's where the pharmacist actually makes the medicine instead of merely dispensing it. But I started a compounding pharmacy for skin, where I made prescriptions, formulated prescriptions for folks who had burns, traumas, who had just come out of surgery, who had injuries, who had serious skin diseases, etc. And along the way, I discovered there were indeed strategies that you could use topically that would not only heal the skin, not only accelerate healings from burns and traumas and skin diseases, but even more importantly, beautify the skin. What happened was my patients would come back for refills even after their burn healed, and they would stay on the formulations. And that's when it dawned on me that there was a missing link in skincare. And the missing link in skincare is health and healing. And if your skincare product can't heal the skin, it's not going to beautify it either. And that's what my True Treatments are all about. They're first aid healing products that can all be used on burns and cuts and scrapes. But because they could be used on burns and cuts and scrapes and traumas, they actually beautify the skin. Now, it didn't entail me re-architecting the way a skincare product is put together. And you may know this, maybe you don't. Most people don't know this, actually. Skincare products have an architecture. They have a formulation structure that is literally thousands of years old. The skincare architecture of the cream, for example, and the lotion, which is the standard product, was developed by this guy named Galen, who was a Roman physician who was wandering around Rome and ancient Greece in the year 200 AD. And he came up with the idea of putting together rose water and emulsifying borax and beeswax. And he created what's called a cold cream, an emulsion. And to this day, this is the standard architecture of a skincare product. And all skincare products is basically, most skincare products anyway, basically Galen's vehicle with some active ingredients in it. And this is why the skincare business has reached what we call today the innovation crisis. I don't know if you've heard of this term, but the skincare industry is now mired in the innovation crisis because there's only so much snail slime you could find. There's only so many herbs from the rainforest. There's only so many reptile eggs and salmon DNA. And this is basically what skincare is about. It's about taking this architecture that's thousands of years old and just sticking in the latest herb from the rainforest or the latest vitamin or the latest peptide, and then selling a peptide or vitamin or herb from the rainforest cream or lotion. What I've done in True Treatments in my pharmacy is I've completely remodeled the way a skincare product is put together. And the net effect is not only products that beautify the skin, but products that heal the skin. And if your skincare product doesn't heal the skin, it's not going to beautify it either.
Wow. Okay. So I want to ask about kind of this other concept that I mentioned in your introduction, is topical nutrition, which I'm sure is a big part of what you offer. What is that? I've never heard of topical
nutrition. I know,
nutrition.
right? Right. Well, check this out. First of all, let's talk about the skin real quick. The skin is not the skin. The skin is actually a composite. In fact, the body is a composite, and the skin is a microcosm of this composite. What is the composite? It's made up of two parts. There's cells, which is the living stuff in the skin, and stuff. The stuff is technically called tissue. I say stuff because tissue sounds a little exotic, but basically cells and tissue are cells and stuff. It's analogous to raisin bread. What are the two components of raisin bread? Raisins and bread, obviously. Well, the body's the same way. The body's built like raisin bread, and the skin is a microcosm of the body. Fractal of the body is the same thing. It's made up of raisins and bread, except we're not raisin bread, so we call it cells and stuff. But it's not merely cells and stuff, and it's not merely raisins and bread. You see, the cells in the body are like magic raisins. Imagine if you took some raisins and you put them on your counter, and then you went off and watched TV and walked the dog and made soup and did all your business and came back and you looked at the raisins that you put on the counter, and all of a sudden it was raisin bread. You would say, oh my God, a miracle has happened. The raisins made their own bread. Well, guess what? That's the miracle of the human body. The raisins make the bread, except we're not raisin bread, so the cells make the stuff. Where this becomes relevant is all of not only our skincare strategies in this country, but even our healthcare strategies address the stuff, not the cells. And this is what accounts for the innovation crisis. This is what accounts for the near universal dissatisfaction with skincare and how skincare is done, and the near universal dissatisfaction people have about their skin. We're addressing the stuff and not the cells. So then the question becomes, how do you address the cells? Well, and this is everything that's true about the skin, Daniel, is true about the heart, the spleen, the lungs, the liver, every other part of the body. And this is a very important point. We believe that the skin is kind of like this outside part of the body. Even though we say it's the body's largest organ, we don't really treat it like an organ. So what is it about the cells, whether it's the heart cells, spleen cells, intestinal cells, lung cells, or the skin cells, that is necessary in order to have functional cells and thus a functional tissue or functional stuff? Well, what do the cells need? The cells don't need anything but what are called the essential nutrients. Everything else can be made by the body and made by cells. But there are 90 substances, we call them essential nutrients, vitamins, minerals, amino acids, and fatty acids that every cell has to have from the outside in, either through food or through supplementation. Now, I was an athlete, and I knew as an athlete that if I wanted to be strong and if I wanted to be able to perform, I needed to use my vitamins, I needed to use my minerals, my amino acids, and my fatty acids supplementally in addition to food. Food is, theoretically anyway, food should have all this stuff in it, but we know today that's not the case. So supplementation becomes important. And I knew as an athlete, I was supplementing. So I had this aha experience. I said, what if we use those essential nutrients in a topical format to feed the skin from the outside in? And this was the aha experience I had when it came to healing the skin. Remember, I was dealing with people who had burns or traumas or some kind of post-surgical wounding that they didn't want to have a serious scar from, or a skin disease. So I couldn't play the ordinary cosmetic game of, oh, doesn't this product smell nice? And oh, look how it feels nice. And oh, Cindy Crawford or this influencer loves this. I couldn't play that game. I was dealing with people who were traumatized, whether through a disease or whether through some kind of wound or whether from a burn. So I had to be serious. I had to enter the world of gravitas from the world of cosmetic. I had to take the world of superficiality and make it real. And the strategy I hit upon was to use vitamins, minerals, amino acids, and fatty acids, what I call the essential nutrients that have to come into the body from the outside to feed the cells, and then to take those substances and put them into carrier systems. And fortunately, as a pharmacist, we study what's called transdermal penetration. We study techniques for delivering medicine through the skin into the bloodstream. In fact, one of the ways we look at the skin as a pharmacist or as pharmacy students is as a route of administration into the body. So I use some of these strategies, these transdermal or percutaneous strategies, ingredients and substances that I could use to carry my essential nutrients into through the skin. As you probably know, the surface of the skin is like a hard fingernail-like material, to traverse this stratum corneum, as it's called, to enter into the lower levels where the living, viable cells are. And this is in essence what truth treatments are. They're topical nutritional supplements in percutaneous or transdermal delivery systems that get through the surface, the stratum corneum barrier, and get into the keratinocytes, the skin cells, which live in the bottom of the skin, in the bottom of the epidermis, and the fibroblasts, which live in the dermis, in order to feed the cells from the outside in, the way nutritional supplementation and diet and good healthy foods feed the cells from the inside out.
Wow. Okay. And then this other concept of bioelectricity.
Oh, that's a juicy one. That's
a
juicy one, man. That is a juicy one. You see, the skin is a bioelectric system. It's like a battery.
Mm-hmm.
And in order for skin cells and the skin itself to be healthy and viable, electrical energy in the form of voltages have to be appropriate. So by delivering certain substances, specifically ionic minerals, polyelectrolytes, in the right solutions, in the right carrier systems, you can actually change the voltages, not only of the skin structure itself, which is structured like a battery with polarity and with charges, but the cells and even inside the cells. And this is very important, Daniel, because we live in this chemocentric world where we focus on chemistry. But chemistry is only effective as it is electrical. And in fact, this all is built on a concept called redox, which you may have heard of. Redox is a acronym, not an acronym, but a shortened form of reduction oxidation. Everything in life is viable because of how electricity moves. Electricity moves, little pieces of electricity, they're called electrons. And I don't like saying electrons because it sounds all quantum and weird, but it is. It's quantum and weird, and it is electrons, little pieces of electricity or electrons bounce from molecule to molecule to molecule. And this is what makes life, the bouncing of electrical energy. When an electron or a piece of electricity bounces off of a molecule, the off of the molecule is called oxidation. The next molecule is called reduction. And this bouncing around is called reduction oxidation, reduction oxidation, and reduction oxidation. It creates a flow of electrical energy. And we scientists, we call that reduction oxidation, reduction oxidation, reduction oxidation flow. We call it redox, reduction oxidation. And the facilitation of redox, improving the bouncing of electrons, of pieces of electrical energy from molecule to molecule to molecule, is what makes an ingredient active and effective. And if you understand the redox potential of ingredients, it allows you to be an exquisite chemist. And that's what I focus on, is the reduction oxidation potential, or the redox potential of molecules, in order to make my products effective, not only at the cell level, but at the tissue level, at the skin level itself.
Okay. So now when it comes to all your products, I mean, you have different products that you offer. You have the supplements you talked about. You have the
supplements are important,
like the creams that you
like. Well, never have creams. I don't do any creams.
Okay.
I don't like creams. I'll tell you why I don't like creams. One of the things, let me just backtrack real quick. Do you know the skincare business started in the year 1910, the modern skincare business started in the early 1900s. There was a lady named Helena Rubinstein. Now, these days we haven't heard of Helena, nobody's heard of Helena Rubinstein, but there used to be a makeup line called Helena Rubinstein, named after this woman. She came from Australia she came from Poland via Australia and the UK. At the turn of the 20th century in Europe, all the families and homes had their own kind of crafty creams and lotions that they would all mix together. This guy Galen, he was in Europe, and over the course of the decades and the centuries, families would have their own little recipes of mixing oil and wax and lanolin and a few little botanicals, and they all have their own little creams. They didn't know anything about the skin. They didn't know anything about skin cells. They didn't know a keratinocyte from a fibroblast from a hole in the wall. But they knew about creams, and they knew that it was kind of smelled nice and kind of felt nice on the skin. And Helena Rubinstein came to Australia and the UK and the United States with no money. But she had a formula for skincare. And so what she did was she took that formula from her family recipe, if you will, her family formula, and she turned it into a product. And now this is the 1900s. Skincare was very functional, but it wasn't really a business back then. You know, the Industrial Revolution was just kicking in, and for the first time, there was more goods, that there was more supply than there was demand. So advertising was starting, and PR was starting, and science was getting big. Albert Einstein had just come up with the theory of relativity, and Helena Rubinstein, and movie star, the movie business was getting going, so there were movie stars, and the world was really changing in a commercial sense. Before the 1900s in the United States, it was a rough and tumble country. You know, there weren't movie stars and there weren't people buying skincare products, but Helena Rubinstein got this brilliant idea to take her cream, her family recipe. She created a fancy story around it. She said it was invented by a doctor in Poland who was a famous researcher, and he went out into the Carpathian Mountains and he found some herbs. You know, she created a whole narrative around it. And then she dressed up in a lab coat because she wanted to pretend she was a scientist, and she had all her employees dress up in lab coats, and she created the modern skincare business built on baloney, built on BS, built on pretend, built on aspiration, built on narrative. Because remember, she didn't know what a keratinocyte was. Nobody knew what a keratinocyte was back then. They didn't know what a fibroblast was back then. They didn't know what connective tissue was back then. Cell theory was only 30 or 40 years old at the time. They didn't even really know what cells were at the time. So she created the skincare business on a foundation of baloney. And then pretty soon she got other competitors, Estee Lauder and Elizabeth Arden, and the whole skincare business grew with this pedigree, with this DNA of baloney, with this DNA of story, this DNA of narrative. But it wasn't about the tissue. It wasn't about the skin. So what I did at Truth is I looked at the skincare products people are using, and they're based on formulas that have literally dozens, sometimes over 100 ingredients. They're these complex chemical concoctions, and they start off with what's called an emulsion, which is a combination of oil and water with an emulsifying agent. The skin doesn't want that stuff. The skin just wants the basics. And this is what I discovered in my pharmacy, is that if you could minimize the ingredients in a formulation and create very, very simple formulas, you could get much more effective products. It would allow me to get formulas that were packed with active materials, specifically active nutrients and transdermal penetrants. Creams are too complicated for healthy tissue. The last thing you want to do is slather a bunch of product on this thing we call the skin, which is an organ. We want to treat the skin kindly. It's almost like if you go to a pharmacy and you have a cold, say you have a cold, let's say, and they give you amoxicillin, right? An antibiotic. If you're sick, do you take the top off your amoxicillin and swallow all 30 pills? No, that's ridiculous because each pill is powerful. Well, that's the way I do my skincare. I want every drop to be powerful. An emulsion, a cream or a lotion, is 80 to 90% water. That means you're only getting a fraction of active material, which is why people slather the product on. With my formulations, because they're 100% active and functional, there's no BS in the product. You only use 1 or 2 drops. And this is why I don't use creams or I don't use lotions, because I want to have as much active material, as much transdermal penetrating material as I can, and I want to minimize the emulsifying agents and the silicone and the vegetable oils and all of the things that make up a cream or lotion that not only don't help your skin, but in the long run, create a burden on the skin that the skin now has to deal with and address.
Okay, good to know on the creams then.
Yes.
So then when it comes to your products, who can really benefit the most from them? Because you kind of talked about this is for like burn victims and things like that, but like it seems like there's a much wider.
Absolutely.
So like
good question. What's healing a burn? It's driving the production of collagen. It's stimulating keratinocytes or skin cells. It's strengthening the barrier. It's accelerating or enhancing the production of moisture factors and lipids. Everything you want in a beauty product is a function of healing a burn or a trauma or a cut or a scrape. And this is why I say, if you can't put your favorite anti-aging product on a cut or a scrape or your baby's diaper rash or a sunburn and have it accelerate the healing of that sunburn or diaper rash or cut or scrape, it's not an anti-aging product. The same mechanism that beautifies the skin heals the skin. And the same mechanism that heals the skin beautifies the skin. And this is what I'm trying to accomplish with my business and with my theories and my concepts is we want to approach beauty as a function of health, not as a separate kind of endeavor where we paint beauty on with rouge or makeup or lipstick, but where we really change the constituency and the nature of the skin so that it doesn't need the painted on beautification. And the greatest compliment that I get about my skincare products is I can now, when women tell me I can finally go out without my makeup. I've never gone out without my makeup before. Now I can go out without my makeup. It's like, why should we simulate health when we can stimulate health? This is what makeup does. This is what lipstick does. We're trying to portray to the world that our skin is healthier than it really is. Why? Because we don't know how to make the skin healthy. What I do is I help people make their skin healthy. By the way, not just topically, but also internally. Because beauty, skincare is like a cake. The beautification products that we apply topically are icing on the cake. But the skin itself is the cake. And in order to have healthy skin, you got to have a healthy cake. And that means internal nutrition. And this is why I talk about nutrition so much. I talk about the digestive system so much. I talk about the intestine so much. I talk about stomach acid. I talk about eliminating junk foods and eating nutrient-dense foods. I talk about vegetables. I talk about nutritional supplementation. Because at the end of the day, if you have a beautiful cake, you almost don't even need icing. And you taste the cake, it tastes great, even without the icing. And then if you put icing on top of it, it's that much better. And that's the way I want people to look at the skin, is that it's a nutritional organ like your heart or your liver or your spleen. So let's focus on the nutrition. And once you focus on the nutrition internally, let's put icing on the cake with topical vitamins, topical vitamin C, topical vitamin A, topical bioelectrolytes, topical melatonin, topical amino acids, and topical fatty acids.
Okay. Now, Ben, you did kind of mention this already, but I want to kind of tie this in together for the listeners. So, I mean, there's lots of products out there. What do people need to be aware of when they're choosing the products? You kind of mentioned as far as like the health side, that if you can't put this on everything else, then like you shouldn't go there. But like, what are some like kind of basic things that people who just don't know, like they're trying to find the right products, they just don't know all this
Less
stuff?
is more. Less is more. You should be able to put 1 or 2 drops of a product on your skin and get an effect. If you have to slather a product on your skin, what's the implicit message? There's nothing in the product. It's a BS product. If you don't slather medicine on, you're very careful with medicine. So you first of all, you want to have a product that's effective in 1 or 2 drops or very small doses. We have to give out little spoons with our product. They look like little Coke spoons. They're so tiny. They got like a little tiny spoon component because we don't want people overusing our products. Number 2, you don't want complicated formulas. You want simple formulas that focus on active ingredients and transdermal penetrants. And when it comes to active ingredients, the most important active ingredients, this is one of the most fundamental ideas in all of effective skincare. The most powerful and important topical ingredients are exactly the same as the most powerful and important internal ingredients, which should make sense because the skin is the body's largest organ. It's an organ of the body. So what are the most important internal ingredients for your heart, your spleen, your liver, your pancreas, your intestine, your stomach, and any other part of your body? Nutrition, vitamins, minerals, amino acids, fatty acids. Your skincare should have the essential nutrients, the vitamins, minerals, amino acids, and fatty acids that the body cannot make in high enough concentrations that you don't have to slather the product on, and in transdermal penetrants that allow those active ingredients to traverse the surface of the skin. The surface of the skin is the booby prize. If you feel your product on the surface of the skin, what's that telling you? It's on the surface of the skin. The cells are down underneath. You don't want to be feeling your product on the surface, but even worse than that, because when you put products on the surface of the skin that sit on the surface, it's like putting a blanket on top of your skin. You shut down skin chemistry. And in a nutshell, this is why people's skin is not as good as it could be. For example, Daniel, do you know we sell $10 billion a year in moisturizing creams in this country, right? There are people, maybe you, have a moisturizer in their locker and in their office and in their purse, and they got 2 in their desk, and they got 3 in their medicine cabinet. They got 1 in the kitchen, and they got another in their backpack, and they got moisturizers everywhere. But everybody has dry skin. What the heck is going on? With all these moisturizers, nobody should ever have dry skin. Well, what's going on is the moisturizers, we call this occlusion, covering up the surface, is shutting down skin chemistry. Our strategies for taking care of the skin are suppressing skin chemistry. What's worse is, check this out. You got dry skin, right? Dry as water problem, right? Why would putting an oil and wax concoction on the surface of the skin help your skin stay hydrated? It doesn't. It's not even possible logically for that to happen. You see, Daniel, we don't know when we have dry skin. Nobody knows when they have dry skin. You can't perceive skin dryness. You perceive skin roughness. We have collapsed 2 separate ideas in our imaginations and in our minds. When we say we have dry skin, we really mean we have rough skin. And when we have rough skin, we say we have dry skin. So why is that important? Well, if you have rough skin, you can use oil. You can use coconut oil. You can use olive oil. You can use a cream because you're not changing the hydration level. You're changing the texture of the skin. You say, well, I don't care. I want my skin to be soft. That's great. But here's the problem. You haven't changed the hydration of the skin. And now your skin is more prone towards disease. It's more prone towards sensitivities. It's more prone towards cancer. It's more prone towards accelerated aging. It's more prone towards being unhealthy because not only are we not really addressing the hydration level of the skin, we're actually suppressing it because we think that our rough skin is really dry skin. So what we do with Truth is we have the ingredients we use are actually driving the production of connective tissue and healthy cells so that the skin can really be hydrated, not superficially pretend hydrated with wax and oil on the surface of the skin, but really hydrated at the cellular level.
Wow. Okay. So that's the things that people need to be aware of.
That's
Okay.
that's
So
an
now,
important thing. Yes.
yeah, yeah. Now, when it comes to the future, I mean, where do you kind of see the future of skincare going? You kind of mentioned like there's like the innovation dilemma,
The
that
innovation crisis. Yeah.
crisis that people are running
Yeah.
into. So like,
Yeah.
where do you think the future is going to go now?
The future, in my opinion, is going to be bioelectrical, and it's going to be nutritional. And I know this because when I first developed my first vitamin product topically in 1990, people said to me, Ben, why are we putting vitamin C on our skin? And today, vitamin C is the most searched for term in all of skincare. So in the last 30 years, when I first formulated my first vitamin C product for helping a guy who had some severe burns, we've gone from why am I putting vitamin C on my skin to everybody knows about vitamin C. So I believe the future of skincare is nutritional, and I believe it is bioelectrical, and I believe it's inside out. And if I could and that means what we eat and how we supplement and how our digestive system is working. And if I may be so bold, I also believe that over the course of the next few decades, coming years anyway, we're going to start to understand the spiritual, mental, and emotional dimensions of overall health as well as skin health.
Okay. And with the future in mind, I mean, what's your vision for your business, Truth Skin Health?
I want everybody to understand what I just told you today over the last 20 minutes. I'm sure you haven't heard it before. This is a revolutionary idea. And I didn't get it out of a book. I didn't read it somewhere. I didn't get it off Facebook. It's not a DIY idea. I got this from my understandings of biochemistry, from my understandings of skin chemistry, from my understandings of cellular chemistry, and from being in the pharmacy, hands-on, developing these ideas with people, with real people in mind. I'm not some anonymous chemist in the back room. I was working directly with people. So I want everybody to understand these ideas. Less is more. Bioelectricity, topical nutrition, inside out, spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical, staying away from ingredients that aren't doing anything for your skin and focusing on ingredients that are. And most importantly, not using toxic preservatives, sunscreens, and by the way, sunscreens are toxic chemicals, toxic ingredients like sunscreens and preservatives and vegetable oils, rancid vegetable oils or oxidized vegetable oils. And I know you're going to get a lot of heat about the sunscreen comments, so let me just address that real quick, because every time I talk about this, I get all kinds of heat. Okay, but let me tell you something. As a pharmacist and as a chemist, chemical sunscreens are toxic. That's why you can't wear them in Hawaii, because when you go on the beach, they kill the coral. That's why you're only limited by the FDA for of the amount that you could put in a product, because more is going to be toxic. That's why you can't even they won't even sell them at Whole Foods and reputable health food stores. So I know there's going to be people say, oh, you're going to sunburn this, that, and the other. No. Zinc oxide is non-toxic. Not only does it block all sun rays, but it also heals the skin. So when I say chemical sunscreens are toxic, I mean literally toxic. Use zinc oxide. And preservatives can be problematic as well. Rancid vegetable oils, sometimes we have these kind of warm, fuzzy feelings about polyunsaturated oils like macadamia nut oil and carrot seed oil and grapeseed oil. Guess what? When you go out in the sun, or you go out in when you expose them to oxygen, when you wear them on your skin, or even the heat from your face, from your skin itself, will oxidize the oil. And by the time the oil is in the product, it's been heated at the factory. And even before it gets to the factory, it's already an oxidized oil. So staying away from oxidized vegetable oils, as well as preservatives and sunscreens and other ingredients that are harsh on the skin or perhaps even toxic to the skin, is another strategy that's important and something that people are going to become more and more aware of as the months and years and decades go by.
Okay. So then for sunscreen, the message is to
zinc oxide.
It's not to not wear sunscreen, it's just use the zinc oxide sunscreen.
Exactly. And also topical vitamins. You know, SPF is only one way of protecting the skin. Topical vitamins help protect the skin from oxidation via antioxidancy, not SPF. And bonus, internal nutrition is critical for skincare, making sure you're eating your pigments, your greens and your reds and your oranges and your blues from vegetables and from fruits. That's the best way to protect your skin from the sun. In fact, here's a little hack for you. If you want to protect your skin from the sun, you don't want to wear toxic chemical sunscreen, and you don't want to use zinc oxide, get eye vitamins. You know how they make vitamins specifically for your eyes, to protect your eyes? Things like taurine and vitamin C and selenium and zinc and zeaxanthin and carotenes. All of these substances will protect your eyes from the sun. And that's why they use them as eye vitamins or eye supplements. If you go to the health food store, you can actually get eye supplements, Ocuvite or Ocutiv. There's various names. Well, guess what? They'll protect your skin from the sun as well. And so using eye nutrients, and acetylcysteine is another very important eye nutrient. Using eye nutrients to protect your skin from the sun is a safer, much safer and effective form of sun protection than slathering a chemical sunscreen on. If you want to use topical sunscreens, though, or sun protection, let's say, use zinc oxide, which heals your sunburn as well as protecting your skin from getting a sunburn.
Okay, great advice there, Ben. Okay, well, I do have one last question for you, but before I ask it, I do want to point people to your website at truthtreatments.com.
Yes, and I have a ton of videos. If they Google pharmacist Ben or Benjamin Knight Fuchs, they'll get hundreds of videos.
Okay, perfect. So last question for you, Ben.
Yes,
what
sir.
does beauty mean to you?
Beauty, that's a great question. Beauty means feeling. Beauty is a feeling to me. Beauty is feeling confident and strong and healthy and knowing that you have an attractiveness that's based on how healthy your body and your mind, your body, and for that matter, your skin, and for that matter, your spirit is.
Okay, well said. Well, there you have it. Ben sharing his
you.
expertise. So, Ben, where can people learn more about you, your business?
Absolutely. If you go to truthtreatments.com, as you mentioned, and if you Google my name, Benjamin Knight Fuchs, or some people call me Pharmacist Ben, you'll get my TikTok and my Instagram and my Facebook, and plus I've been doing stuff working on the internet or working with the internet now since 2011. So I have 15 years of videos and interviews and blog posts and articles. I'm all over the internet.
Awesome.
And you can always write to me at support@truthtreatments.com. If you have personal questions, I answer questions. I answer everybody's questions. Everybody who emails me, I answer their questions.
Awesome. Well, Ben, this is awesome. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing your message, and thanks for sharing your knowledge.
Thank you, Dan. It's great to talk to you.
Thanks for listening to the Beauty Talk podcast. Any questions, please contact the practice directly with the contact information provided during the show. We'll see you again next time. Bye for now.